Hello, my name is Dr. Laura, and I'm a clinical psychologist. I co-own a group practice, and my passion is working with people who have experienced abuse and neglect in childhood and have developed trauma disorders as adults, whether that's complex PTSD or dissociative disorders. I have been doing this for a good 20 years now, and I have learned so much, both from other professionals, but also from each and every one of my clients. And as I am nearing the middle of my career, I am thinking that I would really love to share some thoughts with all of you about some of the things I've learned and some of my observations. And I'm also open to hearing your thoughts and observations, whether you are also a clinician working with clients, or whether this is personal, whether this applies to your life or people you know, or maybe even both. So, yeah, enjoy and let me know what you think. I'm Dr. Laura. Welcome to my presentation on the impact of abuse and neglect in narcissistic family systems, part one. So in part one, I'm going to explain what narcissistic abuse and narcissistic neglect are, because not all abuse or neglect is narcissistic. So I'm talking specifically about abuse and neglect that's common in when there's narcissistic patterns of relating to other people. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm talking about a narcissistic family system instead of just talking about narcissistic personality disorder, which most of these presentations are on. And then I'll end with why do people develop narcissistic defenses as a transition to the next part two. So let's dive in. What is narcissistic abuse? Abuse is narcissistic when one person treats another person or people with contempt and disgust. Often verbal contempt is accompanied by rage and possibly even violence, sexual or otherwise. Narcissistic abuse leads the victims to feel shame, humiliation, rage, and helplessness. And the purpose of narcissistic abuse by the abuser is to gain or maintain power in the situation, or to avoid or at least temporarily get rid of any feelings of shame, humiliation, and helplessness. So narcissistic abuse is inherently traumatic for most people, but it causes the most long-term damage when it is directed towards children. And a lot of my clients did have this kind of abuse as children. Not to minimize that it can happen in adulthood. And unfortunately, if you've had it in your childhood, you may find yourself experiencing it in adulthood too. But the impact is more severe if that's a regular thing happening in your childhood. And if you have frequent narcissistic abuse and neglect in your home, that contributes to some of the disorders I see all the time, including complex PTSD, dissociative disorders, and personality disorders. So what is narcissistic neglect? Okay, so neglect is narcissistic, and by neglect, I'm mostly talking emotional neglect here, although it can have an impact. Sometimes emotional neglect will translate into, if you're a parent, neglecting to feed your child or get them adequate medical care. So, but what I mean by neglect that's narcissistic is that I do not see, as someone who neglects you, I do not see you as a person. I see you either as something that makes me feel good or that makes me feel bad. In other words, yeah, I see you either as someone that pumps me up or someone that I need to defend against. And so I can't see value in you having thoughts, feelings, passions, goals that are unrelated to what I want. And the question is, why is this neglect? It's neglect because, it doesn't feel good no matter, again, what age you are. But when we're young, like when we're born in the first 5 years of life, we actually really require that the adults around us are able to interpret our actions and emotions and expressions of all kinds that they're interpreted accurately enough so that our parents can meet our physical and emotional needs. And small children also want and actually need their parents to notice and care what they want, think, and feel. Again, these things really have long-term impact when this is not happening. And just to be clear, it is possible to neglect your child in some ways physically, even if you're technically feeding them. For example, if you're feeding them when you think they should be hungry, you may have children that get extremely hungry by the time they eat. And technically, they're eating, and who knows, they might even eat enough. But I am not responding to, if I do that as a parent, I'm not responding to my kids' needs and their expression of need. I have a like a timing in my head as to when they should sleep, when they should eat, and whatnot. And so that can affect a child actually not getting physical needs met. Another way this can happen for children is that if I see you as a threat as a child for whatever reason, I may punish the child by withholding things that they physically need from them, at least temporarily. So, children who experience chronic narcissistic neglect, like frequent, repeated, basically you learn that your value is tied to either having traits you did not choose, because let's say I'm a mom, I've always wanted a daughter. The fact you are a girl as my child makes me feel good. But if you are a boy, you do not make me feel good, and thus I'm more likely to neglect you, for example. So your worth is in traits you did not choose, and or in your ability to perform in ways that are successful. And neither of these, both of these ignore your internal experience of yourself, your own interests, your feelings, and your thoughts. Those things do not matter and are not valued by the parent. And so your sense of self cannot fully develop. And you may even dissociate any interests, thoughts, and feelings that disagree with the parent. So either you think you don't have any of your own interests, or they identify so strongly with what you've been told should be your interests that, yeah, I mean, it might look impressive, or it might look like you have a sense of like, oh, I know who this person is, but internally, like, none of that's coming from, feels like it's coming from your own desires and your own sense of what you want and don't want. And so that's then you have as an adult a sense of like performing or faking. Um, that's one reason people feel that way anyway. So, as adults, survivors of narcissistic neglect in childhood continue to struggle. And as a survivor, as an adult, and I see many people with this, you might not know who you truly are, what you want, and what you need. And if you look at even definitions of some of the traits of personality disorders, you see this sense. Like underneath borderline personality disorder, it says that you don't have a strong sense of self. And basically that's also under narcissistic personality disorder. And both are because you're in a situation where yourself is not is not acknowledged and seen. The reason is different, maybe, but the reality of it is the same. Um, Narcissistic neglect also leaves you with a longing to be special and to be valued. And as an adult, there can just be this incredible longing to be seen as really special, even if on another level you're like, I don't need that at all. That's disgusting. That's selfish, blah, 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 blah. But there's an unmet need. So, like, practically speaking, another thing with narcissistic neglect is that I tell people all the time, like, look, the things that cause a parent to be happy with a child or delight in a child should not have to be like you've discovered a cure for cancer as a 5-year-old. There are things like if you spent any time with 3 and 4-year-olds that haven't been abused in this way, they come to you and they say, look how fast I can run. Look at me jump into the pool. Well, that's a little older than 3 or 4. Look at me jump. Look at me, spin. Like the things that they're naturally, like a child naturally wants you to be excited about and delight in, are not magical things. They're things that pretty much every child, unless you're severely delayed, the most developmentally delayed, is able to do. But if you're not getting that sense of being seen and being seen as special in that way that is developmentally normal, as an adult, you're still stuck with like, in order for me to have value, I have to figure out somehow I'll get the praise if I can do things, some amazingly special thing, or if I can be better at everyone else than something. Not realizing that like that kind of delight and value and specialness, a healthy parent can give that to you when you're 2, before you can do much of anything. Thank you for listening to part 1 of my presentation on narcissistic family systems. Part 2 will go on to talk about shame and humiliation as the emotional impact of narcissistic abuse and neglect.